It is indeed another week, a very awaited week, for me at least. Hi. These are my casual conversations with me, Carlz. The only show, as far as I know of, that takes something that I said in Spanish before. I give it a week to cook and to process on my brain, and then I sort of reflect on it back again, right? Back in English. What an experiment, am I right? So, welcome all back to my own personal and very awaited English episode of Severance. As always, this is no Wikipedia version, and it's a spoiler-full conversation about a series in particular. In this case, Severance, right? So it's not about, well, maybe a little bit about who is in it, and like it's not about who made it and everything. Just about Severance. And of course, the first thing you always have to say about it, it was kind of a disclaimer that I missed out on the first season of Severance when it came out, because I don't usually see or like consume like things. I don't want to make myself seen as some sort of like a hipster type of person, like but I don't know, it was just all over like Severance is so good, like nah. And I'm like, I don't care. So it has the guy from Parks and Rec and whatever, like meh, I don't care. So fast forward to the beginning of season 2, and somebody on my other streams told me like, hey, have you watched Severance? And I'm like, no, I have not. And it's like, it's so good, watch it. And between that and some other peer pressure like going on, I finally sink my teeth into Severance. So I plowed through season 1, and as often happens, the first ideas that came to me with the series appear with season 1, right? And I think I gotta sink my teeth right into it, because when I was preparing myself for talking about Severance in Spanish in my Spanish episode, so I started thinking about all the elements of Severance that I liked, and something really weird happened, right? What happened is that many of those elements that I liked about Severance became things that I sort of not hated, but they became frustrating factors. I think that's the best way of putting it, right? What do I mean about with this? I think like the first thing that I like about Severance during season 1 was this underlining sort of political social commentary on like a type of Marxism alienation type. So what I mean is, you have these people that are all obviously working a job that is supposed to represent some sort of mundane, like 8 to 5 soul crushing work, right? And it's so strange because in a way that it's inherently political in meaning, right? So quick chat break. I would have to rewatch that, Gaston. I would have to rewatch that. I completely forgot about Twin Peaks: The Return. So during Severance season 1, I was really into the idea that this was some sort of political commentary on like blue collar work, whatever, like a very Marxist idea of what it is, right? So I really got into this idea of, okay, what if any like proletariat backbreaking worker could dissociate themselves? Like both politically and philosophically, those are like really interesting ideas, because those are things that happen, right? They happen in a practical sense in all of the working man brains. But what could happen if you did it for reals? And of course, what happens, and it shows on the series, is that you create this sort of like separated identities. This is a really Japanese thing now that I think about it. Like the the whole mask theory in Japan, where you wore different masks depending on which social circumstance you are. Like you have your work mask and like you have your regular day mask. So back in season 1 of Severance, I was really into that idea, and I was really consumed by the idea that they would somehow exploit that as a sort of social criticism, right? So that was one of the first things that got me into Severance, was that idea and the structure of the series itself, right? Which is basically a sci-fi thriller, and thrillers are always good, right? But sort of like rounding up the idea of the politics and the philosophy of it, it got me into it at first. But when I got to season 2, something really funky happened. Was that the series itself started like distancing itself from this philosophical political idea. Like it just started like went into another way, like so slowly, that I didn't even realize it. So when season 2 came to an end and I was preparing to do my Spanish commentary on it, like it sort of dawned on me, like, dude, what happened with this political criticism idea that it had? So for a brief second, I was really frustrated by it. I was like even a little bit disappointed, perhaps a little bit angry, because towards season 2, the series migrates completely from any sort of political or philosophical identity, full into a thriller slash drama type of narrative, right? So what do I mean by this? Like any of the characters, the main characters, the 4 main characters, don't ask me to remember their names again. Like same thing happened in the Spanish version, but whatever. So when I ask whether there is a political or philosophical commentary in the alienation each of the main characters do, like if you take them one by one, none of them are really there for any reason that could serve as a platform for a political or philosophical commentary, right? They all sort of dissociate themselves or make a different personality because of emotion and because of, I don't know. So the main character he loses his wife, so he sort of like wants to forget about that. Like the big chubby guy, like he just does it because he needs a job, basically, right? Even though in season 2 they go a little bit deeper into his motivation, and it's all related to human relations, right? So John Turturro's the Jesus character is similar, right? And just an older person that is conflicting with his sexuality and like his like identity. And well, of course, the biggest mystery is like Helly. For some reason I remember her name, and she's more of a utilitarian character, because whatever she's doing in her Audi form, it has to do heavily with the plot. So she's there to make you sort of like get more involved with the big picture of the series rather than the smaller one. But the point is, like, I came to my Spanish version with a little bit of frustration. I couldn't get out of that idea. Like, so there are two main ideas. Idea number 1 and idea number 2 that led the commentary in the Spanish version, and those haven't changed since then, which is the politics, philosophy, and the structure, right? So I questioned myself, why did I stop caring for this philosophical, political, how can I shorten that? It could like philopoly, something like that, right? Why did I just end up forgetting about it? And it has to do necessarily with the structure of the series. So I think I've spoken about thrillers before, but thrillers are like this really, really simple algorithm, right? You have a big mystery, it has a beginning and an end, and everything that happens in between are just little clues between the beginning and the end, right? So a good thriller basically needs to make you want to figure out the ending, but at the same time, it needs to make you fall in love with the in-betweens, with the elements of the in-betweens, with the structure of the thriller, right? And that's where Severance strength lies the most. Like, it's not about the the philo what did I say, philopoly. It's not about these deeper meanings. It's about the structure itself. So even though the structure is strong in the sense of a thriller mystery, it also it's a little bit weak in a sense that when you jump from season 1 to season 2, there are these rhythm dissociations that are related to how modern TV series are made, like soft reset in comic terms, right? Like you get a huge step forward by the end of season 1, then you get like a halfway step back towards the ending of toward the beginning of season 2, right? But there is some brilliance in the writing, which is something that I could never do myself, right? And it's really something hard to do, which is to sort of like give you these little clues in compact, convenient doses. So it's like a drug, right? When I think about this, I always think about the anime Death Note. It's a completely different subject, and of course, it's a completely different series. But whenever I think of Death Note, I always think how I always wanted, like, every episode would finish, and all I could think about was what's gonna happen next, right? That is a good thriller structure. And if you sort of like take Severance apart and think about, for example, what they do in their department, what did they become like separated, each and every one of them, what other departments are in Lumen, what happens in the other floors of it, right? Like everything that happens in it, it's masterfully written in a sense that it always gives you an illusion, whether that be true or not, that what you are watching is related to the end game of the series, right? As I said, a thriller has a big end game at the end. That's why it's called the end game, right? And of course, in Severance is what the fuck Lumen is, right? What exactly do they do? So they do this sort of like not only giving these clues to you in different stages, but they make them interesting in a way that it's strange, bizarre, right? But charismatic in a sense. So we are by the end of season 2, right? We have completely morphed from any polyphilo type of thing into a fully like telenovela, cheesy love triangle thing, right? Everything becomes like that. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but we have completely migrated to that side. It's all about relationships, right? Like this guy had sex with this guy and whatever, right? But in between, they release, I don't know, as we see in this episode background, the whole thing with the goats. So the whole thing with the with what they were doing, as they reveal in season 2, like they were creating different personalities. So the math is really well written in Severance, while we don't really know, like, for example, do we even know, like, if everyone in this department was creating these little boxes and they were creating personalities, right? What the hell does that mean? We know that Gemma, by the end of season 2, she has like multiple personalities, and they can be activated by whatever chip they have on their brain, right? But at the same time, we don't know what the hell they were doing when they were like sort of like gonna sacrifice her, like with a goat or something. You know? Like, does that make any sense? And when you make that question on a thriller, depending on the answer, is how well can you enjoy or like not despise, but like could be a little bit repelled by it. In thriller discussions, I always bring up Shutter Island. Like it's my go-to uh, criticize thriller in media product, and it's always strange because I'm no Martin Scorsese, right? I'm like I'm like just some bald dude like that whose apparent passion is talk about these subjects in media, but has like no Oscars or whatever. But I always found that Shutter Island is such a shitty movie, and like I'm not gonna talk about like acting or like composition or all of that things that is left for professionals. Like it was such a shitty movie because when I was watching Shutter Island, I don't want to pretend I'm like Sherlock Holmes or like some dog with like special sniffing powers, right? But I could see the end of that movie a mile away. Thriller wise, everything was too convenient. Everything was too well kept, right? Everything was too in order. It's like this Martin Scorsese like saying, "Okay, I'm gonna try my chance in." He speaks like this. I'm gonna try my luck, like doing a thriller. But it ends up doing like just like standard structured thriller. Like these are the steps, and you reach to the same ending, right? Of course, that's a movie, and this is a series, and it seems that they keep feeding small seedlings of whatever is to come, right? In anything. Like I don't know if they're ever gonna do an episode about the band, right? In season 2, we learned that there's like a department of bands, and they do like music and everything. They have like the department of parties and everything. I don't know if they're ever gonna come like into a place. But even like the character of the old lady, right? The old screaming lady, the one that the one played by Patricia Arquette. Even her in season 2 has an episode about giving you a lot of clues about the beginning of Lumen and who the founder is and what they're trying to do. Like she sacrificed everything, but everything remains a mystery. And what you really need to do to keep the mystery going is not only keep feeding you clues, but at the same time taking you out of it. And I think that's one of the things that Severance does the best. But the more I reflected on it, the more I thought like, why did I like this? Like no, it can be just how it looks, which it's great. It can be just the actors who are awesome. Like all of them are awesome in this one, which is it's probably part of the reason you like it, or I liked it. It can be only that. It can be the big mystery because in season 1 and season 2, the series does not give you enough material for you to get an idea of what they are, right? For example, they seem really oppressive against their employers, and the fact that they can't really interact between their innies and outies. And at some point, you might think that's related to, let's say, a company thing, right? But it isn't really. It isn't really a company thing. It's not that extreme. They always have like workarounds. Like even the fact that there are like unsevered people working in the company, it leads you to think that, well, that is not. It's not really that important. It's not really that important that they interact between innies and outies. Even there's even an element that goes from season 1 that seems to be forgotten towards season 2, which is that in this reality, like severed people, it's a real thing, right? It's not a secret or anything. Like it's not like something that people don't know about. It's something that people know about. And even back in season 1, I thought they would make a commentary out of it, that it would be important somehow. but in the end, it doesn't seem to be like that. But anyways, back to the point. So the structure is there, right? And I keep asking myself, why do I like this series? And it can't be either just the thriller element. It can be just that I want to find out the end, right? It can be it's just too simplistic, and how can that be the only reason I liked it? It's like if it was for that reason, I would be watching like a bunch of other shit. But there is something in the way that Severance captures you that, to me, it has a lot to do with charisma. So this is something that I've been thinking ever since back I did my Spanish episode, right? And it's the fact that the character seems to be really intentionally cast in a way that they have this strange type of charisma, right? What do I mean by this? It seems that the characters themselves are strange. Like when you get these interactions between like Mark, right? This Mark and his sister, there seems to be like a basic divide between them. Like everyone that works at Lumen is strange. And if you're thinking in the unsevered characters, like Mr. Milchek, for example, he behaves and he acts really strange when he's in Lumen. We haven't seen him yet too much outside, but when they talk, like in a company sense, right? He shows his fangs like a sort of corporate predator type of person, right? Like he wants power or success or whatever you want to call it, right? But every other person inside of Lumen has this weird, strange personality. They all seem to be like charismatic in a really strange, weird sense. So what they did is they separated their innies and their outies, and by putting them into this isolated reality, which is Lumen, they turned them into these really freaky, charismatic, strange weirdos, right? And that in itself is like endearing in a way. So the magic world that is created inside of Lumen is so charismatic and so loving in a sense, so strangely lovingly, that it sort of captures you. I end up like reflecting in like how I liked better the moments inside of Lumen than the ones outside. The moments outside of Lumen seems too plot oriented, right? Every time a character is outside of Lumen, they are moving the story forward. And like I'm outside, so I'm gonna, I don't know, think about the reasons why I'm inside. So I'm outside, I'm gonna fight against the oppressive system. Like I'm outside, I'm gonna make a shining light into the bad things that Lumen is doing, right? Which to this day we don't really exactly know what bad thing Lumen is doing, right? But whenever they are inside of Lumen, they get into these weird situations with the goats, or like with blood, or like with the red door, or with the department, etc., etc. So back going all the way to the end of season 2, right? I mean, between the end of season 2, when I wanted to talk about Severance, that space of time where I was developing these sort of frustrations with the original ideas that I had with the series at the beginning, what began to happen there is that I sort of surrendered to the idea, right? Even at the end of season 2, Mark has this interaction between his INNIE and his outie, right? And I don't know if it was intentional or not. I'm not part of the writing team of this shit. But even there, it seemed like outside Mark was moving the plot forward, and inner Mark was the protagonist of this drama. And it sort of clicked there, right? The elements that were a frustration at the beginning sort of made sense, and this is why, like, in the end, the purpose of them separating their identities between innies and outies and created these alternative identities is because the outside world, perhaps in some way, sucks worse than the inside world. Like, what do I mean by this? Even though at the beginning I thought Lumen was this sort of like metaphor or criticism to corporate lifetime, right? Like they were like prisoners on or something like that. By the end of season 2, they are different persons, right? The innies and the outies. And the innies have this chance of living this really interesting life. And that is sort of like a big deal. In the end, it turns out that maybe having the INNIE in the corporate life is not to dehumanize them, but to rehumanize them, or like to like overhumanize them, because their basic sort of like needs become apparent. It's a really smart ploy by the people that write this thing, right? It's like because it would be much harder to get into a social political philosophical commentary. That's hard. Like that's what people write 1,000-page books about, like identity and like the essence of things, ontology and everything. That's why we have a whole branch like of philosophy dedicated to that, right? Because that is not something really that you can show in a show. It might sound funny, but that's it. That is not something you can really show in a show, because shows, they always have to rely in more things than just theory. It's a really ironic thing in the end, because like and as a philosopher myself, that's always like a source of frustration, right? Because you can give me all the theory that you want and like talk for thousands of pages about the essence of things, but that doesn't really come through, does it? Like you can do like a logic tree and like an algorithm of how you are thinking about identity, but that never ever comes across. That's just how it is, because we don't really think in theories. We don't really think logically, in a sense, right? We think in human ways, and this is not just some cheesy thing to say. We think in human ways basically means that if we have a dissociated identity, right? Basically, this is the premise of the series, right? A person separates into two identities, two completely separated and different person, right? What happened with that when they interact? How do they reflect their own lives into their identities? And that is something that is really strange. And when Mark, INNIE, and Audi, when they have this interaction in season 2, it really makes you realize that Mark inside has nothing to do with Mark outside. Even though you've been watching the series for a long time and are mildly aware of how it works, until that point, it's really hard to realize that they are different people, right? Like, even though before that they talk about, I don't know, like the Mark's sister, or like what was the name of the chubby guy? Like his wife, or like Haley's really important identity on the outside and how they essentially hate each other. Even though you had all of these things, since they can only be themselves in Lumen, their life and their existence is really compressed and really small. So it has a chance of being overly dramatic. And that's when, by the end of season 2, everything sort of clicks, right? So at the end of season 2, when Mark chooses to remain inside, right, it sort of makes sense. So Audi Mark tells INNIE Mark, like, okay, if you come out, like, I promise you, I'm gonna I'm not gonna forget you, I'm not gonna destroy you. And I think this is a coward is not the word, but this is a really manipulating thing that the series is doing, right? Ever since season 1 towards season 2, they are implying that there is a way for both of them to exist, which of course would be really hard to do. Not even in the in the world of the series itself, but in a sort of like a theory that you wanna like promote with the series, right? So because you have been feeding the idea that they are completely different people even though they share the same body, right? How could that ever be a thing? Like it just can't. Even though there is no really like as I said before, there's not really like strict theory that you can abide by to understand these things. It's obvious that like if we're talking about two identities, you cannot have both of them. Like they can't go like Dragon Ball Z and like fuse both into one, and that's not how it works. And it could not work like that, right? It just couldn't. And that sort of leads me to the final idea that by which I structure my thoughts on Severance. And it's an idea that is directly related to the idea of thrillers, right? Which is the idea of theories, like what happens next, right? And this could be really dangerous because we don't really know how long Severance is going to be. So this is an argument that can be taken by two sides. One side is the just bare technical minimum side. So if I think about theories about the future of the series, I have to input like all of these boring ass restrictions, right? Production times, contracts, new characters. Like I bet you that when season 3 it's almost ready and it's like about to come out, there's gonna be all of this. Oh, this new actor was cast for an important role in Severance. Which role will they be? Where? Right? All of that thing is gonna start to happen. And like, will Severance will be renewed for season 4 or anything? And all of these TV people, they always they always saying the same shit. And it's something that always happens in comics too, right? Everybody always knows how they're gonna finish their story. That seems to be the norm. Everybody always knows. But if you do, and if you know the medium you're working on, right, you need to be prepared to cut it short. To me personally, this works in a really like a funny way, in a sense that I don't wanna be thinking too much about it because I know that it can be cut short. So like imagine they already have the ending, the writers in their mind, right now, right? You already have it. So, how much have they decided to share with us throughout these 2 seasons? We know there's more to know about Lumen. We know there's more to know about the founders. We know there's more to know about why they do what they do. We know there's more to know in the Lumen building itself, right? Like the goat thing and like the sacrifice thing, the identity. We know there's like so many questions. There are so many questions that it makes you wonder how much have they given away. So this is like a more than common problem with like modern TV and series narratives, and it's something that I really don't enjoy too much, and it's something that is sometimes really easy to let go, and that should be the prerogative when you write something like this. But in the case of a series like Severance, it's impossible. How could you not? How could you not think about what's left, right? In the case of like a sitcom or anything like that, well, it could be just another joke for just another episode, right? But how could you not think about these things with a plot like Severance? It's impossible. So, the way I see it, moving forward, the main idea or my main theory is that it could be in one of 2 ways. Either the end game of Severance is the complete absurd, right? Which is the option I would like it. Like, I don't know. They have like touch with the absurd and the comedy in several points, right? Like in the when they see Keeves like a animatronic and bro, it's like a robot, like a creepy robot. They have touched with the absurd a lot in the series. So one way is that it has to be really absurd, and the other way is that it's going to be really deep. I know by the way I talk and I mostly think, I really like the deep things and conversations. Like, well, I do. But in the case of Severance, I'm not that keen on it because they have moved towards this sort of like only romantic interpersonal like sort of field. Saying that, that was the final revelation that I had in after my Spanish episode. That was my final revelation that I had, and one that has kept me going. So I asked before why, if I reflect on it, why did I like Severance, right? And everything is connected from the beginning. From my idea or my desire to experience this social criticism, philosophy, commentary, you whatever you want, towards the end of season 2, which is completely this drama filled, like romantic, cheesy love triangle between the main characters, right? All of that is just a way to say that whenever you create this story arc between characters, and in the case of Severance, whatever they were trying to do, it was about the humanity of it, right? And that is the sort of the idea that kept coming back to my mind, right? Like, if you had the chance of having a different identity, and that identity be completely devoted to this great adventure. Somehow, for example, the relation between Mark and Haley inside of Lumen could be true love, as far as we know. Right? The series sort of low key makes you forget that inside Lumen, these people are basically like children. Right? They don't have fully lived lives and experiences inside of Lumen. They live in this sort of a bubble. So whenever things like love, whenever things like revolution, like when Mark brings the book from his brother-in-law into the company, whenever those things happens, or like the character of Captain Phasma, right, was Gwendolyn, that actress, like the one with she has with the goats at the end of season 2, right? Those things are authentic, and it makes you think that maybe the alienation that happens inside of Lumen doesn't make people less human, but it makes them more human, which would be the opposite of Marxist ideology, right? So alienating your identity doesn't dehumanize you, but it gives you more humanity. So these characters are really strongly passionate and strongly like they feel in sort of like a pure way, and that is where like all the pieces of the puzzle start fitting in, right? And like why you have to give props, for example, to the casting, like why they chose like Adam Scott for that role. Like he's this really like a sort of like goofy, nonchalant guy, like the perfect corporate image, right? But when they separate him and you have INNIE Mark, you completely buy every like strong emotional outburst he has. Like you completely buy it. Now you could do the same like for his character in like Parks and Recreation or something. Like you know, if that character were to explode, you would also believe that, because that's just how he is as an actor, right? This like a nonchalant type of like executive face or anything, and it goes for all of the protagonists. Like of course John Turturro is like the Jesus. He's like a genius, right? And when he plays this really obsessed sort of theological character, like a complete devout character, you sort of forget that he, inside Lumen, that in on itself is so pure. You sort of forget about it in a theoretical way, but by the performance he gives, you completely transport yourself into a situation of complete devoutness to like a higher power, like even more than any other type of religious thing you can understand. It just come across that strongly. And in the end, that seems to be the strength of Severance, even though it's a thriller, even though it's sci-fi, even though it's confusing, even though it's clever. It seems like the focus of the series is the humanity of it. And it's bizarre in more than one sense, right? Because it's like how can they be human if they don't have like broader lives or like a socially constructed reality? How can they be more human if all they know is this really condensed version of reality that it's controlled by a higher power? Like how could they be more human? And that is the genius of it. Just insert little pieces of ideas, whether it be for identity or like for politics. You insert them into this controlled space, and what you end up getting is like a true revolutionaries, or like true lovers, or like true hard workers. So the balance is there. If you make the authority like a complete Audi, like Mr. Milchek, you make him the authority. What does that really mean? Like if you're a true revolutionary, like you get a representative of the system or the man controlling you, who has a direct superior position over you because they are not severed, right? They have a complete personality. You're like half of a person. Even though you're a full person, you're half of a person. So in the end, the math sort of reverses itself. So the criticism is not coming from the outies being separated into the innies, and the innies being the sort of like a commentary on the outies. But it seems to be the opposites, right? It seems like it's not the innies being a reflection of whatever is wrong with the outies, but the innies struggles are sort of like a reflection of what's important, of what doesn't happen on the outside. In the end, it happened in the inside, in this controlled space. So, in a sort of like funny way, I have this. This is my current state of ideas with Severance, right? Like this sort of really passionate idea of the innies struggles and plights for the future, and I'm really looking forward for what happens next. But at the same time, I'm being really cautious, because my ideas from season 1 got completely not destroyed, but got completely different by the end of season 2, and I don't know what are they going to do looking forward to the future. I really wish I was inside the mind of the writers. Like it's not that I wanna know the end of it. It's nothing like that. It's just that I would love to have a notion. No, like scratch that. I don't want to know how it ends right now. Because in the end, as I said in the middle part of the show, right? For a thriller, it's all about the process. How you get from point A to the end game and to the revelation of it all. I don't know. As it stands right now, Severance is it's still good, because all of these things that I've been talking about, they are in one way or another part of it. And as long as they keep being this like smart, the production continues being this good, and the performance continue to be this like amazing and unique, I think the series can go on for longer time. I guess if I had to conclude something, is that I wish it lasts like appropriate amount of time. Like I hope it lasts an appropriate amount of time. Like right now, the important resolution or endgame of the discussion of the series itself has moved from just being whatever a lumen is to how you are gonna reconciliate innies and outies. That is the main problem and the main question remaining, right? It can be an easy to solve problem. You already established that they are different people, and by Mark fighting between INNIE and outie, you already established that there's no easy way out in conciliating both of them. So in the end, I'm not that really worried about what Lumen and Kiv and all of that religious shit it really is. I'm not that concerned with it, unless they do the more brilliant stuff and combine both things. Combine the resolution between innies and outies into this big world building idea of whatever Lumen is doing or whatever they are trying to do. Something about identity or like pure emotion or something. It seems to be something like that. Who knows? But yeah, Severance ended up being a roller coaster as I watched it and as I thought about it. And not knowing when it's gonna continue, I guess I have more time to think about these things, which I often do anyways. So whatever, like I'm gonna do it anyways. But I better leave it there. All I have to say is that my INNIE and my outie would probably have some really interesting discussions about Nicolas Cage. Like, if I'm the INNIE and I have a bunch of shit to say about Nicolas Cage, I do hope that my Audi feels the same. But I wonder if they even have Nicolas Cage movies in a different controlled ambient. Or like you could create like really strong revolutionaries if you show them like Con Air or some shit like that, right? Who knows? Who knows? Well, whether you are an INNIE or an Audi, thank you for listening to me. And I hope you liked it. I hope it gave you things to think about. And I sure would hope to talk about more of this with more people. And like, well, if I don't, I just talk to them with myself. Or that's might be the point of it all, right? You can have an INNIE and an Audi, and different parts of your consciousness just talk among both of you, like among themselves, and like perhaps reach in like some sort of conclusion or something profitable for both of you. Whichever the case, thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and see you next week.